if that photo is genuine and Virginia Giuffre was in the room with Prince Andrew, and Prince Andrew, who told Emily Maitlis that he's not a hugger, had his arm around her waist, it begs the question, why on earth would Epstein fly Virginia all the way to London to meet Andrew? What possible purpose could he have had for that?
Newly released emails reveal that the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein wrote that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor did have his photo taken with Virginia Giuffre. A famous photo shows Andrew with his arm around her, with Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. Virginia Giuffre used the photo for evidence that Andrew sexually abused her on 3 occasions after she was trafficked to the UK by Epstein. Andrew denied ever meeting Giuffre and said the photo was faked. Jack Royston is the chief royal correspondent at Newsweek. Joins us now. Jack, morning to you.
Good morning.
Is this the key problem for Andrew in this release of emails? That many people would have felt this was a genuine photograph anyway, but Epstein refers to it in such a way that there can be no doubt, in his mind at least, that it was genuine.
Yes, exactly. I mean, most people, I think, who watched Andrew's 2019 BBC interview formed all the conclusions they needed to form in that moment that they watched that show. But of course, Andrew has maintained his denials, and, there are kind of talking heads type people who, an ex-girlfriend of Andrew, for example, who will pop up here and there and say that the whole thing is a hoax. And of course, we've had Donald Trump in America saying, the Epstein hoax, why are we still all talking about that? So what this really does is, if that photo is genuine, and Virginia Giuffre was in the room with Prince Andrew, and Prince Andrew, who told Emily Maitlis that he's not a hugger, had his arm around her waist. It begs the question, why on earth would Epstein fly Virginia all the way to London to meet Andrew? What possible purpose could he have had for that? And that is where this will reinforce some of what Virginia was saying. And, it's very easy to kind of say casually, well, the public kind of all believed Virginia already. But of course, it was hugely important to take things further to her. That's why she sued Andrew at court in New York.
Yeah, and that's why, and we keep going back to Andrew didn't admit anything, but he did settle. He did give Virginia Giuffre money.
Yeah, he settled without admitting liability. And, her family have also, Virginia's family have also said it would have meant an enormous amount to her just to know that the titles had been removed, that Andrew had been kind of humbled in this way and returned to being a commoner. All of this, I think, if Virginia was still alive today, obviously she died by what her family described as a suicide in April, then I think she would be hugely relieved to see that more aspects of her account are being stood up by verifiable evidence. I mean, that's what this comes down to. Yeah. Andrew's denials, when you go through them again, are very wishy-washy and strange in places. One of his denials was the photo couldn't be real because I've never been upstairs in Ghislaine Maxwell's house. It couldn't be real because I've never seen Jeffrey Epstein with a camera. It's all kind of very wishy-washy and a bit strange.
He also says, there's another email from him which is interesting, where he says, I can't take any more of this. Where he seems to be just saying, just please stop involving me in all of this. I don't know what we're meant to infer from that, other than maybe the obvious point that we knew already, that he just didn't want to be tainted by this stuff.
Well, yes. I mean, his kind of mood about it seems to kind of go up and down. And so that email, it seems like it was sent before publication of Virginia's first email in the Mail on Sunday. Ghislaine Maxwell had been forwarded a request for comment, basically, from a Mail on Sunday journalist, and they were talking about how to deal with it. How should they respond? And
Yeah. So, do you think this puts pressure on lawmakers in America to say we just need to speak to Andrew? Or actually, is the pressure really, because this is now a very partisan issue in America? The Democrats are the ones who pushed some of these emails out. The Republicans responded by releasing all of them to show that they've been selectively picked by the Democrats. Is there a pressure? Is there a likelihood of Andrew being forced to testify in some jurisdiction somewhere?
They can't force him in America to testify to Congress. They can subpoena him, which they'll need the Democrats would need Republican support to subpoena Andrew, but it's not impossible they'll get it. But if they do subpoena him, that subpoena will not have any legal force in Britain because he's outside the jurisdiction. It's obviously very unlikely Britain is going to extradite Andrew to America. The biggest issue right now there's 2 major ongoing issues. In terms of this specific email, the biggest issue is, do the public feel that Charles hosting Andrew at Sandringham, giving him a place to stay at Sandringham, is still shielding him from consequences of his actions. So that is the ongoing question for the monarchy, because Charles is also kind of financially supporting Andrew to an extent. We don't know to what extent. Now, there are pros and cons to that from a kind of British public point of view. One of the pros is that it stops Andrew from slipping into the hands of people like Yang Tengbo, who the British feel is a Chinese spy. He denies it, but he cultivated a friendship with Andrew. And if Andrew needs money and has nowhere to live, then the risk is that he becomes vulnerable to foreign intelligence, who might, Andrew still he lives his entire life in the family. He still knows where the bodies are. So that's one advantage of it. But the disadvantage of it is that if the Oversight Committee has requested Andrew's testimony, they wrote him a letter. If they then go a step further and get a subpoena, and it looks like Charles is hiding Andrew on his private estate in Sandringham, that's the reputational risk to the monarchy.
Yeah, it's not a good look, that is it? Jack, really interesting stuff. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Jack Royston, their chief royal correspondent at Newsweek, going through there's 20,000 emails. People are still looking at them now. We won't be able to read all of them, but that's what they mean for Prince Andrew. We're going to look at what they mean for Donald Trump. Harry Cole, the Sun correspondent in the US, has been looking them over in terms of what it means for the Trump administration, where he takes these things.
Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Ouija, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us. Mary.
Thank you, Galen. Two questions on this. In the interest of transparency, why not just go ahead, release the full files on Epstein, get this all over with?
This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein than any administration ever. In fact, this administration, the Department of Justice, has turned over tens of thousands of documents to the American people. We are cooperating and showing support for the House Oversight Committee. That's part of the reason you are seeing these documents that were released today, because of the House Oversight Committee's and Republicans' efforts to get these out to the public. This administration also moved, the Department of Justice also moved to unseal grand jury testimony, which we know, unfortunately, a judge declined those requests. So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about.
Some Democratic members of Congress have invited Britain's former Prince Andrew to testify on the Epstein scandal. I was just wondering if President Trump thinks that former Prince Andrew should indeed come and testify to Congress on that.
I haven't spoken to him about that specific matter, but I can ask him and get back to you. Thank you, everyone.